Welcome to another episode of Treehouse Friends. I'm Randy Hoyt, and I'm here today at the In Control Conference with Dave Rupert. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Dave's the lead developer at Paravel. Could you tell us a little bit about your role there and what kind of work you do?
Yeah, so Paravel is a three-man team based in Austin, Texas. We are going to stay three people. We like being three people. But it's two guys I've known since high school, really, Trent Walton and Reagan Ray. You guys may know them from the internet, but yeah, so we're just three guys. We do, based in Austin, we do good work.
Yeah, excellent. I saw today your talk was on HTML5 features. What are some of the features that you're excited about in HTML5 that you're already using in your work at Paravel, or some that you're looking forward to being able to use in the future?
Right away, you have the semantics side of things, the new elements and stuff like that. Those are really easy to get using. They're fixable in older browsers, but I still, even today, I find that people have hesitation about using them. There's things like the new HTML input types. You know, input type equals email, input type equals URL, stuff like that. That like huge UX gain just by like changing like 4 letters, you know? Mm-hmm. But I find people either don't do that, or they forget to do that, or they just, for whatever reason, they haven't allowed themselves to do that. I think those are huge features. I am very excited about the location API. I've used it a lot in the past. It's kind of old news maybe now, but Best Buy, for example, you always have to enter your zip code, you know, or any store really. I don't want to pick on them. But you enter your zip code, and I have to remember my zip code, but you enter your zip code, and then it gives you a list of stores, you know, but we have the technology now. It's really easy. I just hit allow, and they can get my zip code and my geolocation and tell me exactly how far away things are, or just show me the things that are in stock, or, you know, that could be Target, or, you know, I'm at the point, I live across the street from a Target. Who doesn't in America? But I live across the street from a Target, and like I don't go there without like searching their inventory before I go there. So it would be really cool if that website knew I was next door. So, and they could just tell me the things not even show me search results for things I can't buy at their store. That would be interesting. But I'm really excited about location. Mm-hmm. Another thing I talked about is ARIA roles and the accessibility features of HTML5. Those are killer features. Those are really awesome. The list kind of just goes on and on, right? Yeah. Get user media is a new thing. It's the ability to like access webcams and audio, and you know, I do a podcast with Chris Coyer. It's coming to where we could maybe do that podcast with HTML, live broadcasting, and that's absurd to me. That's like, wow, this is the future here. So yeah, that's stuff I'm excited about. I like HTML.
Last fall, you released an article on A List Apart called Mo Pixels, Mo Problems, where you're talking about retina displays and images. I think there you recommended a solution using like a 1.5 size image, so it's a little bit larger, not quite double. Is that still something that you recommend, or has that space evolved a lot more just in the last 6 months?
I would still recommend it for like medium importance images. You know, like let's say you have somebody's headshot on a website. You don't want to do like picture fill and polyfill and generate 10 different sizes or something like that. But like for somebody's headshot, like on an article, maybe beef it up a bit so it's not junky on retina displays and stuff. Right. After that article, there was kind of rumors of it, but no real great displays of it. But there's this quality kind of compression hack that you can do. You basically make an image twice the size, but you compress the junk out of it, and you like do 0 quality out of Photoshop, and you can have an image twice the size that looks perfect on Retina. It'll scale down, and it works perfectly. And it's maybe even smaller than the original file because it's so low quality. That is, you know, that's great. But I wrestle with that one because there's like kind of 2 problems. A, you like are always serving people junky images. You're just relying on them, sizing them down. I want like the official way, like an image is an image, a good image, you know, on the internet. On mobile specifically, which is what it's targeting to solve, right, is it exhausts memory on an iPhone. Or for example, iPhones, for some reason you can only have like 1.4 million pixels or something like that in an image. I don't know the actual number, but like 3,000 by 3,000, a image that size will just not show up. It's like, surprise, I don't do that. So you have to just deal with these edge cases. So I don't know if that's perfect. I've seen it in production and it works good. I mean, again, back to the headshot use case, maybe that's a great one, you know, but people tend to want to have a really nice headshot, so maybe you don't want to compress, I don't know.
Yeah.
Why are you asking questions? No. So it's good. Thankfully, picture and source set are kind of moving forward into the specifications. So fingers crossed that that's going to turn out. I don't know. I want it now.
Yeah. The one piece of advice you give in that article that I think does still apply is to use your brain and to try out different techniques and see which one's going to work best for you. Is that still where we're at, where there's not really a solid answer? You have to try a bunch of different things and settle on the one that works best for your particular case?
Absolutely. That's what web development is that's why we're professionals, right? And, you know, for Treehouse, you can learn different techniques about how to do maybe one thing even, you know. There's going to be best practices, and those will always rise to the top. And but, you know, right now, you just got to think it's a no man's land and just do the best you can. I will say, with the caveat, you know, the problem with the 1.5x hack is that web pages are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we need to be careful. We can't just give people a 2 meg website anymore. People are expecting less, and it's just not necessary. We're like the junkies. We have the business requirements to have like a hero image on every darn page. So we need to grow up, I think. We need to be careful. Not grow up. We need to be careful about this, how much we're sending down the pipe.
Yeah. One of the things I want to talk to you about is your goals for this year. So I know a lot of people look to you for answers, but it's interesting to see that you, in public, are still talking about how you're learning and how you're keeping up. Would you mind talking about a couple of your goals for this year?
Every year, everyone writes like my life goal in 2013, and I did the same thing. My life goal was to write one of those posts. And for 2013, I decided to do 2 things, and one of my kind of like core concept is always be learning. Just, we're never the smartest, and if you are, you're about to get like humbled in a big way. So like, I always want to be learning, and so I came up with like 2 goals that would help do that. One goal was to finish a book a month, and I don't really have a lot. I say this, I don't have time to finish a book a month. But I do, if I quit like playing iPhone games and stuff like that, I have an amazing amount of time to read a book a month. So I've been trying to do that. Also, another goal of mine was to spend about at least like a dedicated 4 hours a week learning something I don't know for programming. And I have this list of shame of things I want to learn, and I'll tell you, I'll just out myself. I've not used Backbone, like, I need to, and I just need to learn it. I don't use Grunt. I should. I just need to like use it and add it to my workflow, or maybe go. I call it full Yeoman, but full Yeoman. Just like get on some sort of package manager for my front end work. But then again, I don't know if I'm the target audience there. But there's a lot of other stuff. But those are kind of my big things. It's like, gosh, this is stuff I talk about and I want to do, but I just, for whatever reason, haven't done it. So I'm trying to dedicate like at least 4 hours a week to learning that stuff. In Austin, Texas, where I live, there are, every Tuesday night, this guy Damon, can I tell a story?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, please.
This guy Damon came up with this concept. He negotiated with his wife 1 night a week to go out and work on side projects. And so he got Tuesday night. So he can go to any meetup he wants, he can can just sit in the coffee shop and code all night long. Wife watches the kids, he's in good, And so he kind of turned it into a thing. Like, hey, we meet up here. And out of that, actually, like 2 startups have been formed. Like dudes just sitting there coding together, and they like launched a startup and they got millions in funding. It's a success story, right? But so that's kind of the environment he incubated. And so Cafe Bedouins is this thing where you just go out Tuesday night, you work on a side project. And so I've just been trying to go out and do that. You know, there's more I can learn, you know? I mean, I don't know every class and every function and every method, or it's just to learn, you know, just to make sure I have the basics covered, and then that'll probably, no doubt, help me in my day job when I'm doing something later.
And for the reading a book a month, I'm guessing those are programming books, maybe one on JavaScript right now?
Well, actually, you know, my coworker Reagan did a 2012 reading list, and he had about 24 books. And I was just like, that's awesome. I don't read that much at all. Most of my books are programming books, or, you know, design books, or just kind of web related. And so my goal was to actually broaden out and do something else. So I just finished Smacks by Snook, best book I've read on web stuff in the last year, hands down. So like, go buy that. And I've just started reading, or I'm halfway through Freakonomics. Just kind of, this guy takes data, and I'm sure people know it's an old book, but the guy takes like data and like reinterprets it and gives you kind of a different perspective from data. So that's cool, and I could actually see how that would apply to my life, but it's really kind of an interesting book for me. And then I also just recently cracked open, I shouldn't read 2 books at a time because I'll fail, but I cracked open Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. It's a book on how to write better, use grammar and punctuation correctly, something I don't do if you've ever read my blog. So.
Excellent. I noticed recently you launched the Accessibility Project website. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I sure can. So the Accessibility Project, A11yproject.com, is a open source, it's a community-driven effort to make web accessibility easier. I've been making websites since I was like 14, so like more than half my life now. And accessibility is still difficult for me, and I sort of like have come to the conclusion like it's unnecessarily difficult, and not to like accessibility experts, and I know you guys have a course on accessibility. That's all helpful, but accessibility experts tend to be really passionate people, and they tend to be academics, right? So they work for MIT, and they're you know, publishing studies on screen reader usage and stuff like that. And it's so in depth that the average web developer doesn't have time, can't like immediately pull the best practice, and so it's just kind of too much. So and then there's this like further complex problem where everything's out of date. There's a lot of out of date information. If you think about it that way, it's like the information is difficult to get, the information is out of date, and then the community tends to, you know, be experts, and they've got jobs, and they're sort of isolated from like the web developer community, like people, you know, us, and you know, new kids getting started. They tend to be a little more isolated from that community, right? So my goal, I just was looking at the problem, and I was just like, you know, I feel like it has a design, like accessibility has a design problem. It should be a lot more approachable, and we should be able to like dilute the best practices. It's a very nuanced field, and I don't want to oversimplify it, and maybe I'm criticized for doing that, but there's best practices that we can grasp onto now, and stuff you don't even know. I mean, turns out title attributes, they're really terrible, like because people use them wrong, and they're over redundant, and people don't like them.
Yeah.
Surprise, because I've always read that they're great. They like, this is the best thing you could do for your website, you know? So I'm just like, everything gets a title tag, you know? It's like div title the div, you know? And so accessibility is just kind of over complex. So I put it on GitHub, so it's completely open source. So if there's a problem, we can update it. So in theory, it has the latest, greatest information. Now, that's like my most recent feedback was no, 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 stop peddling this bull expletive. So maybe it's not working, but I'm really encouraged by it. I wake up every day and somebody's fixed a typo, somebody's added content, somebody's made a pull request, and I just wake up and I say, open source is working. This is awesome.
Excellent. Sounds like you're trying to make accessibility itself more accessible.
You could say that, yeah. I mean, for me, again, it's like I'm not a dummy. I work hard at my job, you know, and so why is this so difficult? And so I'm just trying to, you know, cull the best resources, and there's a lot of other, and I've talked to a lot of other people who have had the same problem, and there's a lot of other people who have pitched in. I mean, we're up to like almost 40 contributors now.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's cool.
And are you handling all those pull requests, or how does the process work?
Got a small team. There's actually 3 admins right now, and it can grow, and it should. You know, you don't want posts to just go up. We've actually had a problem. This guy committed a post. It was on access keys, and I was like, you know, I didn't know about these. These sound like an interesting feature. Turns out access keys are terrible. And people were like, this thing is fail, this is dumb, they don't know anything. And it's like, well, exactly. I mean, that's exactly the problem, is there's so much misinformation. So we'll rewrite the article to say, don't use them. There you go. Fixed. That's it. So
perfect case of open source working.
Yeah, yep. It open source, even like bad things, like where terrible criticism comes, it's working.
Excellent. Well, the last thing I want to ask you about is you'll be on a panel at South by Southwest this spring. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. It's called What You See is What You Expect. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and what you guys will be covering in that panel?
Yeah, so the panel is going to be pretty interesting. There's probably going to be 1 million responsive web design panels, but this is kind of like centered around responsive web design and then kind of design patterns, sort of like Brad Frost's patterns library or even style guides. It's being put on by a guy from The Guardian, .co.uk, and so they're obviously investigating responsive web design to solve a lot of their mobile traffic problems, or problems? I guess mobile traffic's good. They're kind of developing this really robust style guide, and I feel like that's pretty English. You know, the British are always very thoughtful in everything they do. Like, every bbc.co.uk has a beautiful style guide, and you know, it's just these guys are very thoughtful about what they're doing. So we're going to talk a bit, you know, about like just how you kind of do that workflow, and you know, it's not just PSDs and stuff anymore. It's these more complex things.
And are you using those more complex deliverables in your work at Paravel, or how does that reflect?
Yeah,
that?
we're back to Smacks, reading that book, really eye-opening in just how we should be doing web development, CSS specifically. Just more modular, just everything's a module, everything can be reused. So, you know, you can get in IDs versus classes, that old HTML war, but classes you can reuse. So like, let's plan on everything being reusable. Let's just, that's our baseline. So we're going to reuse that. And then it's a matter of presenting it, right? You need to bundle it in a package that people can digest. Usually the work we do is a lot of handoffs. So we'll hand off a site to somebody. Then it's their developer team has to make inferences and stuff to build out this project. So you need a really good, well-documented CSS. So in that sense, you'll probably want to start building out something like style tiles or a style guide. If you go to Bootstrap, Twitter Bootstrap, that website where you download Twitter Bootstrap, it's a documentation guide for how every part of Bootstrap works. I think like delivering mini bootstraps to clients is probably the future, just because you want them to have all the tools to build their website from their CMS or whatever it is, hopefully with your help as a client services, so you get money, get paid, but you but then again, without you, I mean, because, things go awry and you want to give your client the best thing. So yeah, it's that focus on reusable, modularized code. And Starbucks has a great example of that. It's a dock system that's using the style that's, it's a little Inception, but it works.
Yeah, a phrase I've heard other professionals say, and you mentioned in that in the description for the panel, is that we're building a system and not a set of pages. Could you explain a little bit more about what that means and how that ties into this idea of a style guide?
Yeah, definitely. This was actually so we're at In Control conference right now, and I was at an In Control conference in Hawaii talking to Daniel Burka, who works on Google, like Google's kind of app platform and maybe Google Ventures now. But Daniel Burka, old Dig guy, right? So he's talking and he's just explaining just like, we don't make web pages anymore. We're not, sure we can. You can make a conference page or something. But really what you're making is a system. Yeah, the word system, but you're just making an organism that has different body parts that all fit together and that needs to be recyclable. And, you're never just making one page. Even if you're building a one-page web app, a Bootstrap, or sorry, a Backbone app, you're going to have, like, you might have to use these modules somewhere else in your app or something. So nothing's unique anymore. We're just heading to where the web is no longer just these pages. They can be blogs, but your blog is actually a sophisticated web app. So it's a web app that displays content. Once we all realize we're in the web app business, our code needs to grow up. Andy Hume, I think he's at ClearLeft, but I had a presentation called CSS for Grownups. I recommend watching it. It's just like how to code like an adult, and it's super convicting. If you've just been kind of, I'm just gonna fake it. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Dave. It was great talking with you. If people want to stay in touch with you and see some of the other projects you're working on, where can they find you online?
Yeah, you can follow my blog, daverupert.com. Follow me online at Davatron5000, Davatron 5000. You can subscribe to the podcast, Shop Talk, at shoptalkshow.com, or it's on iTunes and all that, Shop Talk, one word. By all means, reach out to me. I'd love to see what you're working on. So.
Excellent. This has been another episode of Treehouse Friends. We'll see you next time.